Good evening, everybody. This is Casper from the Tropical Weather Threat Society, bringing you our nightly update regarding the tropics. And boy, we've got some stuff to discuss tonight. We've got both basins that are going to need some significant discussion on. And wait till I show you what we've got with Hurricane Kiko out here in the Eastern Pacific. Now a Category 4 major hurricane. Beautiful specimen. But first, of course, we always are going to dive into the Atlantic Basin, and we have not had much change today at all. As of the 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time tropical outlook, we currently have a 40% chance of development over the next 48 hours and an 80% chance of development over the next 7 days. Now, as of the 2 p.m. advisory, the area or the hatched area of potential development also now includes portions of the windwards and getting down, or the portions of the windwards and the leeward islands. So we're starting to extend this a little bit further and further to the west as to where development potentials could occur. It is probably going to occur before then, but it is now within the area. Now, as we could see here, we are going to go through and read this tonight. A tropical wave located over the eastern tropical Atlantic, a few hundred miles west-southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands, continues to produce disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions remain conducive for additional development of this system during the next several days, and a tropical depression is likely to form late this week or this weekend. This system is forecast to move westward to west-northwestward at around 15 miles an hour across the eastern and central tropical Atlantic into early next week. So it's not moving rapidly. It's not moving very fast at all. So if we take a look at now our 850 millibar cyclonic vorticity models, we have the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. Now, if we put these together, we will be able to, we'll just go ahead and kind of get a little bit of a description and an idea. We've got our intertropical convergence zone right here. We have our area of interest right here, our area of interest right here, and our intertropical convergence zone basically right here. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to leave those lines there, and we're going to roll this forward about 72 hours. And if you notice that it does start to lift a little bit further up to the west northwest, the GFS within the next 72 hours, and this is what it was showing last night, definitely has the organization of a potentially named tropical cyclone at this point in time. The Euro, most likely classified tropical depression. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, if we continue to run this forward, we will note that both of them remain in about the similar location as far as east to west, but north to south, there is a considerable difference. The Euro has this more southerly dip, like a west southwest motion, and it's just enough to kind of increase the angle for potential impacts there into the islands. Now, as we get out to 7 days, as you will notice here, we do not have the system to the islands yet. So we're 7 days out from today, and the models still do not show, at least the operational runs or the deterministic runs, do not show impacts to the islands yet. The GFS is not going to impact the islands. The Euro, unfortunately, has a much further southerly track, and at that point gets it off into the Caribbean. And then, potential land interactions, the high pressure building in, and as you could see, great amount of difference between that north and south, between the two deterministic models. And please keep in mind that this isn't even tagged an area of invest yet. So we don't even have a solid center to go on. So the models are basically predicting one solution as to saying, all right, this is where this particular run believes that it's going to develop and then intensify and track, all in a predictive state when we don't even have an area of invest yet. So please keep that in mind. The ensembles are, more of the things that you want to use primarily, but just looking at the 850 millibar vorticity then allows us to know exactly where our quote unquote seed is for these next models. Now, currently we have the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. On the top models represent the 500 millibar level, which is approximately 3.5 miles above the ocean surface. The bottom two represent the 700 millibar level. This this is approximately 2 miles above the ocean surface. Now, as we run this out, we're going to take this out to 72 hours. We do know already at that point in time that we have our area of interest right here. Now, we've got much more drier air up into the 500 millibar level than we do down there at the 700 millibar level. And the same goes for the Euro. Now, the Euro looks to keep it a little weaker, a little longer. Now, if we run this forward, we're going to take this out to day 5. You will note that the storm has moved, and the reason that I left the circle there is because as far as the Euro is concerned, the Euro a little west-southwest, maybe due west, as to where the GFS has a little bit of a west-northwest passage. So it looks to be in that day 3 to 5 range as to where we, and depending on obviously where it develops, it does look like that's kind of the uncertainty point within the models. Now, if I run this out to day 7, the Euro still has a system here, but it is not extremely strong. The GFS, on the other hand, has a much more cohesive and intense signal, but at the same time is a lot slower in the fact that it is turning up to the north as far as approaching the islands here. Now, as we run this forward and run through, we will see that we do get some type of storm system that would be moving through on the Euro. The GFS has a much more developed storm, but out into the wide open territory of the southwestern Atlantic here. So if we were to get impacts as far as what this solution is, it is going to be kind of fringe impacts. But now, if we roll this back and we look at these brown colors, for the first 4 days, maybe 5 days, potentially even 6 days, for the majority of the track, across the eastern and central portions of the tropical Atlantic, it will be dealing with the dry air that the models are showing. Now, once it gets up, the GFS is showing that once it gets up potentially north of the islands, then it finds a little bit more of a conducive environment for moisture compared to what the Euro is showing. Even though it stays, rather weak, there's a lot of dry air associated with that particular circulation, and it is not very strong, at least from this particular run standpoint. If we compare that all with our shear, we've got the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. This represents shear from about 1 mile to about 7 miles above the ocean surface. Now, as we could see, it is looking to be a rather light shear environment throughout its passage, as we can see here and we can see here. So there is a great amount of shear off to the north. Both models are agreeing with that, but unfortunately, the wave is buried a little bit further south. Now, the big question is how far south? And unfortunately, that is a question that we will not be able to answer, at least until we won't even be able to give you a proper prediction until even a guess, not even a prediction, until we at least get an area of invest on it. Now, as we could see here, and as we're running forward, we're at day 7 here. We've got 997 millibars represented here on the Euro deterministic run. That is a decent tropical storm at that point, 993, 96, 95. The GFS, on the other hand, is a very small compact system, and which is allowing it to kind of be a little bit more intense, although it does not show the pressure values here. The Euro is never really getting it below 993 on this particular run. Now, the one thing that I do want to point out is even at day 10, here's the question. If you look right here in this little pocket, it shows up kind of similar here in the GFS, this little pocket. I am concerned about intensification of a system if it were to get into this region, just due to the fact that both models are, even at 10 days out, they are in a dramatically large agreement with this large scale trough feature coming through and then creating, kind of eroding back the high pressure and potentially creating an area of much lighter shear here in this southwestern portion of the Atlantic. If we go back and we remember what we looked at with the humidity, these areas, this area that I've highlighted here, north of the islands, south of Bermuda, east of the Bahamas, in a very similar area to where Aaron created a Category 5 hurricane this year. It looks to be, at least on these model runs tonight, it looks to be that it would have a potentially conducive conditions and potentially really conducive conditions for intensification. Regardless of what that wave is doing, for our folks now it's along the coastline of the southeast and our friends in Florida, your rainfall amounts over the next 7 days. We have the NOAA blend of models on the left and the WPC official forecast on the right. As you can see, the blend of models do not represent the full extent of the rain that the WPC has forecast. The WPC has almost an inch of rain a day on average, 3/4 of an inch a day on average for our folks here into southern Florida. Please notice that we're starting to get a developmental bullseye off of the North Carolina coast as well. We've got 4 inches here in Morehead City from the NOAA blend of models, 4.8 here associated with the WPC. Now, the WPC, we already know that the WPC has some values that are higher as far as, what the coastal regions are calling for and southern Florida. I'm going to take the NOAA blend models out 10 days, and good Lord, look at that. This is just now starting to show up on the models. This is land breeze meets sea breeze and an offshore trough. A lot. That's a lot of rain right there. As you could see, even if we come here from day 7 and then we start to really run this out and get this to day 10, it is a very widespread area of shower and thunderstorm activity. So, uh, starting to get growing concerns here for southern Florida, and especially for the southeastern portion of Florida and into the urban corridors. Okay, now we're going to jump into the ensembles. Now, this is when you're looking at a system that does not have an area of invest tagged to it, it is not a name storm. These are the models that you would primarily use to look at all of the different types of variables that may occur throughout its transition across the tropical Atlantic. So if we look at the Euro legacy tonight, this is the just the original Euro, no AI. As we could see, there is a very broad area and a lot of uncertainty of exactly where this is going to develop. I mean, look at this. We're talking about anywhere from 4 to 5 degrees in latitude. That makes a huge difference as to what the track is later on. And what I'm going to do is we're going to zoom in a little bit and take a look. As you could see, if it is on more of these southerly tracks, it just doesn't have enough time to get further north than what we have for the folks here in the islands and potentially getting back in here as well. If it develops earlier, as you could see, it wants to try to curve up. Now, this is what we've seen with the GFS. If we remember what the Euro operational or deterministic run showed, it did not show, it just showed one storm coming through, down through the windwards, up and into portions of Puerto Rico. Well, if we look at the 50 different ensemble members, not even all of them developed this system to where that dry air could impede development altogether. And it just continues to stay a very weak system as it continues to cross the Atlantic. There is no guarantee. This is why there's only, right now, a 40% chance over the next 48 hours and an 80% chance. It is likely something is going to develop, but not everything is in agreement. Now, where it goes from there, that is a question, because some of these, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to push this to day 12. What we have for the majority of them are going to want to pull it north. Bermuda, obviously, you need to keep a watch on just about every system that develops from the main development region this year. It seems like Mother Nature's got a target for you guys. Thankfully, she's missed you. But if we look, the majority of them want to pull them northward. But now I know it's fairy tale land, and you can't trust anything really outside. I mean, like going to day 10 is really, really pushing the limits of the model itself. Anything beyond that is, Alice in Wonderland fairy tale time. But sometimes you can look at it for just overall patterns and just to make sure that everything is still behaving that way. For the majority of it, yes, it does look like that there is going to be more of a northerly component to this somewhere along the line, where is going to determine where it is at, where it develops, and when it is at a particular location at a particular time. So, timing to this and what other factors as far as low pressures developing along the stalled out frontal boundary out here. As you could see, we do have low pressure signals. That would then help to erode back the subtropical high back to the west. It would not be able to build back as far, but there's a pattern flip coming eventually. And it's going to be, right now, it's just too early to make any determinations with this. If we compare the Euro legacy with the Euro AI, notice the Euro AI is not really much on this at all. A few ensemble members, and the moment that it tries to develop, if you look anything here in the blue, the moment it develops, off to the north it goes. So it would feel a higher level in the atmosphere. If we look here, it would feel winds higher up if it were to develop compared to the lower level winds down here. And that shows promise if it does try to get its act together, at least from the AI's perspective, for our friends out here into the islands. Again, Bermuda, timing is going to be everything, and a large factor is going to be what comes off of this trough. What develops? Do we get stronger low pressures that come off of here and help to knock back this high further to the east and allowing something stronger to be able to pull up before it impacts anybody down here? That's the question. And it's too early to tell. If we compare these all with the GEFS, now we're going to run this out and we'll show 10 days because the GEFS is in similar agreement with the GFS operational, saying that this is going to develop much earlier, has a much smaller window of potential development, and then pulls off to the north and just avoids everybody and turns into a fish storm. So this is what we hope for, folks. Honestly, this right here, this is what the scenario that I am looking forward to unfolding over the next coming week. Now, if we compare all of that with our Google DeepMind, and we're going to start here with the DeepMind, and we're also going to try to transition from the Atlantic to the Eastern Pacific, because we've got a lot to talk about out there, as you can see with Kiko. Kiko's not a Category 2 anymore. This was the 12Z run. Kiko's a Category 4, and it's a completely different monster than what this was calling for earlier this morning. So I'm going to zoom in here, and we're going to run the Google DeepMind forward. And actually, I am going to turn on the Euro ensembles. Now, you're going to see low pressure and little dots here associated with around southern Florida and the Bahamas. These are non-tropical areas of low pressure. Not every single dot that you see on some of these represent tropical low pressures. So this is a non-tropical just area of low pressure. What we're watching for is out here in the main development region. Okay? So as I run this forward, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, we're going to stop there. And we're going to highlight this little cluster right here. And as you could see, even with the Google DeepMind, they have a much more southerly track. But if you notice, there are quite a few, and I'll even shut off the models and we'll turn them back on. There are quite a few of these that keep it south and eventually potentially gets into portions of the islands, but only one makes it out of there. Now, this obviously, people are going to look at this and be like, oh wow, here, like it survives, it goes over the Dominican Republic, and everything. It was a major hurricane before it made it there. This, folks, is 2%. Okay? If we compare it with the other crazy looking model, this is also 2%. So this is what, out of the 50 ensembles, there is no way, and I'm going to zoom in, there is no way that you're looking at 50 lines. Not all of the ensemble members are picking up on development of this particular disturbance. All right. If we were to turn on the Euro and the old kind of Google DeepMind, there are a few more of the older model that were to potentially move it through the Caribbean. But notice everything has this kind of northerly component to it. So somewhere along the line with this frontal boundary sticking off the United States, this area of, or this disturbance should turn to the north. The only problem is that it's going to be, look here, in 5 days, we're not even to the islands. And if I were to run this forward, as you could see, the development region in the Google DeepMind, there's not a lot. There's just not a lot. Now, one thing that I will point out is that we're just getting a few little signals out here into the southern portions of the Gulf, in the southwestern Gulf. That is going to be getting back down towards that time of year to where we're going to have to watch when this frontal boundary gets, hangs off and hangs out over the open waters. We've got to watch for potential areas of development along that frontal boundary. But as far as some of the signals go, okay, if you look at it's not a lot. We've got some on this first one, but again, it's not like some of the other systems that we see. Like running over here to the South China Sea. Look at this. All right, this is a very strong signal of some type of development. You could say that there's pretty good amount of dots there, and probably close to around 50. If we just come back and look at this, I'm not saying that development isn't going to occur, but the models are some of them are kind of iffy on it. Both AI models are kind of half and half maybe. Okay, let me check here. Oh, chat's going crazy. All right. So, we look at our nightly update with the Madden-Julian oscillation. As you could see, we're forecast to bring it back into the phase 1-2 area. And welcome, folks. That is going to lead to, a lot of areas of lift in the upper levels to allow air to just kind of rise and escape. There's not really going to be a lot of high pressure or suppression or anything like that. So we're going to end up with a potential increase in the possibility of some tropical cyclone activity as we progress through, like this week, getting into next week. And by the time we get to the end of next week, I'll be very interested to see what the models are looking like. So if we take a quick look at Earth Null tonight, now this is where I'm going to go from here, and I'm going to transition right into the Eastern Pacific here, because I'm going to show just really quick our area out here that has the 4080 on it, or disturbance in the Atlantic. If I were to come up in height, and we're a mile up, as you can see, the circulation is not necessarily aligned very well. The 800 and 700 millibar levels are getting a little bit more kind of lined up as far as what Earth Null is showing. The 500 millibar level is starting to get a little bit of a low pressure swirl as well. That being said, it would not surprise me if we can get a bona fide, if we can get that center of circulation at the surface, and the other levels, the 850, the 700, the 500, they're not far apart from one another. If we can get them all to congeal, then we would most likely begin to see at least an area of invest on this, which will then allow halves A and B, H-Wharf, and H-Mon to run on this disturbance and just give us a little bit more information. All right, now, first up, we need to talk about Lorena. So, Lorena is currently got a set of watches and warnings on the Baja Peninsula. But one thing that I want to show everybody is it's not a guarantee that this thing is going to make landfall even. It is forecast to make landfall. It could fall apart depending on what occurs here in the next 12 to 18 hours. This thing could begin to fall apart and actually never make it to the coastline. But, so if we put our trusty green circle here on where Lorena is, and we go up in height, if you take a look at the winds, let me clear that. Take a look at the winds that are coming off of the Pacific here. All right, all these winds are coming in from the north. As I come up in height, as you can see, the 850 still has a little bit of a weakness there, but still dominated primarily from winds from the north. If we look at the 700 millibar level, as you can see, we have kind of winds that want to push it this way. Now, keep in mind, a hurricane stretches through all the levels of the atmosphere. So it is going to feel all of these different levels depending on how strong the storm is. If the storm is really, really weak, it may only reach up to, kind of its full vorticity, maybe only up to about 10,000 feet. As it gets a little stronger, it starts to reach up higher and higher. Right now, Lorena's a hurricane and a category 1 hurricane. So it's able to feel all these winds here in the entire platform here, I guess it's the wrong word, but just throughout the entire atmosphere. But watch what happens as I get up a little higher, the 500 millibar level. As you can see, we've got this strong ridge of high pressure out here that is in, running a, kind of a southwesterly flow. But look what happens when I go up to the 250 millibar level. Now, it's a completely different direction. So, what's going to happen? Lorena is going to continue to come up here further and further up to the northwest. Then, it is going to be increasing the shear from the southwest onto the circulation. Now, keep in mind, we're 6 miles up, right? So all of those strong winds are coming in from in this region right here. The storm itself is powered down here at the surface. The water temperatures are going to start to cool as it gets closer or further and further to the north. At that point, this area is going to start to weaken on the low level of the storm. But these winds up here are still going to be strong. There is a possibility, if the storm weakens enough and the winds up here are strong enough, that the storm itself will do what is known as decoupling. So if you think of the storm itself vertically in height like this, these strong winds in the upper levels are going to basically shear the storm in half to where it takes the top half of this storm and it ejects it off into these winds. The bottom half then will be kind of weak and will then be subjected to the other winds that were going that way. So there is a chance, it's not, we'll read the discussion here momentarily, but there is a chance that the center of Lorena actually never makes landfall. That being said, it's not really going to matter that much. Uh, People are going to be in for a lot of rain. And we've got some concerns with that, and we'll go over that here in just a moment. If we jump out here to the Eastern Pacific, we have Lorena. We just discussed a little bit about that. But the real top story of the Eastern Pacific and kind of the star of the show, while Lorena, threatens folks, Kiko out here is, wow, really, really getting its act together. And honestly, I'm just doing a refresh to make sure that we don't have any kind of highlight on that. If we look at its most recent satellite imagery, and I have on my personal account, I have shared from the University of or Colorado State University, I have shared a zoomed in picture of this eye, and it is absolutely fascinating how its rotation in. You can see the ocean surface, but you can also see areas of vorticity within the eye kind of coalescing into one. It's absolutely amazing. So you guys should definitely check that video out. It blew at least James and I, it completely blew our minds away how beautiful that just rotation and symmetry and kind of cohesion all coming into one was quite amazing. But there may be a little something in store, and could potentially happen, and is mentioned in the forecaster's discussion here with Kiko. So currently, Kiko is located at 13.9 north, 131.6 west, about 1,600 miles east of Hilo, Hawaii. Maximum sustained winds are a Category 4, 130 miles an hour, moving west at 9 miles an hour, and a minimum central pressure of 955 millibars. Now we're starting to get kind of in that range. And right now, there are currently no coastal watches or warnings in effect and no hazards affecting land. But as you can see here in the forecast, we've got major hurricane throughout 8 a.m. Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Sunday morning, weakening back down to under major hurricane status. Monday, 8 a.m., being out here, getting a lot closer to the Hawaiian Islands, getting within about 5 degrees of longitude within the easternmost portion of the big island there, and still at a hurricane strength. One thing that I will also like to point out is that the storm itself, as you could see, moving here, we've got 8 p.m. Friday. Hold on, let me do this again so we can get the 24-hour marks. So we have 8 p.m. Thursday to 8 p.m. Friday to 8 p.m. Saturday. As you can see, it's not really moving very quickly. Then we have, or this is 8 a.m. on Saturday. I apologize. Then we have 8 a.m. on Sunday, 8 a.m. on Monday. So it looks like it is going to pick up just a little bit of forward speed here as it starts to approach. the islands here to the east. That being said, in the forecaster's discussion, this is very, very interesting, especially that third paragraph. So, our first paragraph represents and denotes their justification for increasing it to a category 5 or a category 4. I'm sorry, I read the number and then just spit that out. It is a category 4, not a 5. This paragraph 2 represents its forecast track. Paragraph 3 represents its future intensity. Now, we're definitely reading paragraph 3 tonight. Kiko will remain over warm water and light vertical wind shear for at least the next 3 days. Kiko's intensity will therefore likely be governed by inner core structural changes. Kiko is currently in the middle of a period of rapid intensification, which is expected to last for at least another 12 hours. Thereafter, it is possible Kiko may undergo eyewall replacement, though the environment could also allow the hurricane to develop annular characteristics. Thus, the intensity forecast is on the higher end of the guidance suite, not that far off the reliable HCCA consensus aid over the first 72 hours. After that time, cooler sea surface temperatures and an increase in southwesterly vertical wind shear should lead to a faster rate of weakening. If we look at the forecast, the National Hurricane Center has this coming up to 145 miles an hour over the next 12 hours, leveling off at that point, and then beginning a weakening process. As we can see from the 72-hour mark, it would be 120, weakening 20 miles an hour at the 96, and accelerating that weakening pace to 25 miles an hour through days 4 and 5. So that's what we're working with right now. We will definitely look back on this intensity forecast tomorrow. But this annular characteristics, that throws a wild monkey wrench into things. So what I have here is from Colorado State University. This is a multi-model diagnostic comparison for Kiko. And what it shows here is we have in our, right here, we've got our deep layer wind shear. We have our sea surface temperatures. We have our mid-level relative humidity. It's almost like these are the things that we look at when we do the models for the Atlantic. And then we have our intensity. Now, we don't have a storm, so it's very difficult to do intensity when you don't have one in the Atlantic. All of our models are located here. We have HMON, HWRF, the Euro, HAVs, all our GFS. We got all our big dogs. If we look, the intensity forecast for all of them are in a pretty steady increase, with then coming down, albeit some of them rather slowly, especially HAVs B, maintaining intensity. That's concerning because it's maintaining intensity of a certain intensity to where we may see an annular hurricane, and I'll show you what that kind of means here in just a second. So if we look at our deep layer wind shear, we notice right now it had lower shear. It is coming up to a moderate territory of shear. Is forecast to go back down and then skyrocket as it is getting into days 4 and 5. That was also denoted as when the weakening trend were to occur from the National Hurricane Center. Our sea surface temperatures on a slow, steady decline. And this being right here, our 26-degree sea line right there. So once we get it out here, we've got low sea surface temperatures, we've got high wind shear, and the relative mid-level relative humidity begins to go down. Now notice the halves halves B stays right there. There's a reason, because if we look at the satellite imagery on this particular storm, this is kind of amazing. You notice how we don't see a lot of rain bands rotating out. Now this may go a little bit too strong and be unable to achieve annular characteristics. But an annular hurricane, I cannot stress this enough, it looks exactly like I'm going to draw. Well, if I could get the damn circle. Oh, Lord have mercy. It looks just like that. There are no arms or rain bands. There's nothing. It looks like a tire. And it's kind of self-feeding. Only 4% of tropical cyclones ever develop into an annular hurricane. It could get a little bit too strong to be able to achieve that annular formation. That's when the eye itself would end up being extremely wide in this big donut. But if we look and we just run this back, you'll notice that the eye itself was kind of wide and then it jumped. But as we continue to run this forward, it does look like that eye is getting smaller and smaller. So at that point, that means it's definitely still intensifying and potentially rapidly at this point. But will it carry on annular characteristics if it continues to intensify? There's a fine balance for an annular hurricane, that it can't be too weak, but it can't be too strong either. So it's got to be in that fine little window right there. And right now, I'm not 100% sure if it were to be able to achieve it at this time. But when it finally performs an eye wall replacement cycle, that may trigger it, because it doesn't really have a lot of banding out on the outside part of the hurricane itself. So it is a James. But it's something that I'm going to continue to watch, because if it does become an annular hurricane, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult for it to weaken rather rapidly. And then if it gets too strong, then it gets too close to Hawaii. So there's a lot, and folks. They don't have a lot on it yet, but monitor the National Weather Service office out here in Hawaii. If you look here and you go to the main page of the National Weather Service, right here is Hawaii. Make sure you click on one of the islands, and there you go. Right now, satellite, radar, your tropical weather outlook, and then all of your local forecast. They have Tuesday with a 30% chance of rain right now. That subject to change, obviously, as this continues to approach. Now, jumping to Lorena. As you can see, Lorena is definitely very, very close here to the Baja Peninsula. The water temperatures are starting to drop rather quickly. I can just show that if we come back out here and go to Lorena and then pull up the model diagnostics on this. We'll run it right to the end, and just to show everybody, the sea surface temperatures are plummeting. All right, they're on their way down, big time. The deep layer wind shear is skyrocketing. The mid-level relative humidity is dropping. This is forecast to potentially go this direction. If it is strong enough, the surface circulation will ride with the mid-level circulation. If it cannot, if the upper level winds and the lower level winds going in different directions, as you could see with this shear going completely off the scale here, if it cannot decouple the system, the low level circulation will ride with the mid level. If it can decouple it and it is weaker, the low level circulation will turn this direction as the mid level goes that way. That's the question. As we could see with some of the intensities here, we're looking at that. The Euro has completely lost its mind, as you could see here. Down here as minimal tropical storm. We're talking about a hurricane. So the Euro has kind of failed on this one, is this particular run. But regardless, what we're looking at for these folks here, we've got tropical storm warnings and watches issued. I will allow the graphics to kind of speak for themselves because there is no way that you guys are getting me to pronounce these towns. As you could see, we do have our tropical storm warning in blue and our tropical storm watch in yellow. So it's not even, we're talking about a hurricane and it is this close to the coast. We have a tropical storm warning, not a hurricane warning. So it is forecast to weaken, but that's not really going to mean a lot for the rainfall that's going to fall. Currently, we're located at 22.8 north, 112.4 west, about 160 miles west of Cabo San Lucas, and about 140 miles south of Cabo San Lazaro. Maximum sustained winds, 80 miles an hour, moving northwest at 15 miles an hour. Minimum central pressure of 985 millibars. Yes, we do have tropical storm watches and warnings in effect, as you could see here, for these particular locations. If we scroll down to the most important point of the public advisory issued from the National Hurricane Center, hazards affecting land. Rainfall. We are looking at rainfall totals of 5 to 10 inches with maximum amounts of 15 inches across portions of the Baja Peninsula and southwestern Sonora through Friday, especially in areas of higher terrain. This is going to cause potential for mudslides, flash flooding, landslides. Please, folks, be careful. Farther northeast, 1 to 3 inches of rain with localized totals of up to 5 inches are expected from portions of the Mexico state of Sinaloa, north and northeast into portions of Arizona and southern New Mexico through Saturday afternoon, bringing the potential for isolated to scattered flash flooding. This includes areas like Tucson and Phoenix. The wind. Obviously, we're dealing with tropical storm warnings and tropical storm watches, so tropical storm conditions are expected. Winds greater than 39 miles an hour. Gusts higher than that. Storm surge. Wherever we don't have a particular value, but there is going to be a water rise in the area of onshore winds near landfall. And the surf is going to be churned up because there is a hurricane 100 and so miles off the coast. Yeah, of course there's going to be some surf, so please stay out of the water. If we look at the forecaster's discussion, so this here, again, the top is from the reconnaissance that they had earlier. They did fly a hurricane reconnaissance mission in there. And why they gave it its intensity of what they did. This one is the one where it is quite interesting. 2, and 3. So we're going to read these. Lorena could still intensify for another 6 to 12 hours while it remains over warm water and in low wind shear condition. By 18 hours, the hurricane is expected to cross the 26 degrees Celsius sea surface temperature isotherm, while southwesterly wind shear also begins to significantly increase. These conditions are expected to lead to rapid weakening beginning by Thursday afternoon. Only minor adjustments were made to the official intensity forecast. The official forecast is at the high end of the intensity guidance through 24 hours, and then lies closer to the middle of the guidance envelope thereafter. The track guidance hasn't changed too much, but the TVCE, GFEX, and other consensus models are a bit faster with the northeast motion beyond 36 hours, and the NHC track was sped up a bit after that time. Otherwise, only minor changes were made to the NHC track forecast. It should be noted that several models indicate a farther left track with dissipation over water without making landfall. This scenario is possible if the hurricane rapidly weakens by Thursday night and starts to decouple due to the aforementioned increasing southwesterly shear. Regardless of which track scenario pans out, there is a very high confidence that heavy rainfall amounts leading to significant flooding will occur in Baja California Sur, especially since the southwesterly upper level winds favor deep convection to the right side of Lorena on the downshear side. So, yeah, it's going to be the best of trying to figure it out. As we could see here, we do have the National Hurricane Center in the next 12 hours bringing it up to a maximum intensity of around 90 miles an hour and then beginning the weakening process, as you could see, from 24 hours at 80 miles an hour to the 48 hour barely being a tropical storm. So this is what's called rapid weakening. It's the same as rapid intensification, but just the other direction, as to where you need to lose 30 knots or 35 miles an hour of wind speed in a 24-hour period. This is considered rapid weakening. But regardless what happens, the rapid weakening really isn't going to mean much. We have, as you can see, our key messages. We have already gone over those here within the public advisory and the discussion. For our tropical storm force winds, as you can see, there is a warning issued, but it's not a lot. It's not a great deal of, look at our 50 knot winds. These are the real damaging winds, 5 to 10%. If we come back and hurricane probability, there's not even a chance for it to even to get to the coastline. But if we look at our tropical storm force winds, we get up to maybe about 40, 50%, maybe 60, 50, 60 in the extreme coastal areas. And obviously areas right along the coast are not going to see winds interfered with by land or trees or buildings or anything like that. So the wind's always going to blow faster over the open waters. Our likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds. It's going to be kind of hit or miss as you go further and further to the north. Obviously, you are going to be later in the time coverage. Thursday morning, very early. It looks like tomorrow morning, our areas here, I have no idea my geography down there, and it's not like I can pronounce it anyway. This area here, Thursday morning, getting into potentially this area here, Thursday afternoon to Thursday, late afternoon time. And then, as we can see here, potentially Friday morning. But it is, as we've already seen with the forecast to be pretty well dissipated by that time. We do have radar on this. Let me hit the refresh on this. we getting this from the database. Click on Mexico and then weather radar. As you could see here, we definitely have the center of the small storm showing up here on radar with the eye wall itself. These rain bands, a rather persistent rain band right off the coast here. That would be kind of terrible if it were to get along the coast, and that would lead to training thunderstorms and the potential for flash flooding as to rain showers over the same area over and over again. So when this thing finally gets into the cooler waters and that increasing shear, this is going to change rather quickly. That said, our rainfall forecast, as you could see, we've got a belt of 2 to 4 inches right here in this green color all throughout southwestern portions of Arizona. And even getting, or southeastern portions of Arizona, southwestern, extreme southwestern portion of New Mexico. Little pockets of potentially higher than 4 inches associated with these yellow dots. Now, this is all subject to change. Please check back with the Weather Prediction Center and your local National Weather Service office. This only goes out 3 days. I can tell you that there are excessive rainfall risks going through day 4, day 5 as this pushes further and further to the east. All right, like I said, excessive rainfall. Yuma, Phoenix, Tucson, getting into extreme southwestern portions of New Mexico there. If we look, our excessive rainfall risk, day 1, down here into south central Arizona. Day 2 expands it, getting it over towards Yuma and stretching it up even further into central portions of Arizona. This is through Friday morning, Thursday through Friday. And then Friday through Saturday, we also have another slight risk. And notice that the marginal, the green, is expanding in all 3 graphics. And if you look at the main, it's all over the place. So the moisture is coming for the folks here into the southwest. Please mind flooded roadways. Do not drive through flooded roadways. There could be a lot of rain coming down really, really quickly. Real quick, looking at the ensemble models, as we could see, definite weakening of Kiko as it approaches, but we're going to have to see exactly how strong Kiko gets to how much weakening has to take place and what's left over when it gets to the islands. If we compare that with the Euro AI, the Euro AI is pretty much trash on this system, honestly. It's way too weak. It has not picked up the signal at all, and it is unreliable with this run. If we look at the GEFS, now this was what it was earlier this morning. It has gone through a bout of rapid intensification, but the GEFS has some interesting feature as to where there is a majority of the track now that potentially want to take it north of the islands. And that will be something to see if that were to occur. Last but not least, we have Peepaw. I have no idea how to pronounce this. I know James has absolutely lost his mind right about now because I've got to try to figure out how to pronounce that in my southern vernacular, southern United States vernacular, and it's just horrible. But it is a tropical depression, and as you can see, may become tropical storm, as we could see with the 35 knots, 40 knots, 40 knots, and then beginning to weaken back down into a moderate tropical storm, but running right along the coastline of Japan. Now, if it goes onshore, obviously it's not going to continue to have this intensity. If it runs offshore, maybe. Maybe. So, all in all, the last thing that those folks need is more rain. They don't need more rain. They do not need more rain. Peppa, okay. Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I know that the eye throws things in, and it's. I didn't get an opportunity to listen to folks who cover this basin actually pronounce things. That's what helps me. I'm not gonna lie. I cheat a little bit because, well, we all know. I have no idea. I just sounded out, hooked on phonics. All right, everybody. I am going to check, and I don't see anything else. So I am going to go ahead and sign off for tonight. We will be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central here on Facebook and YouTube. So feel free, join us then, and we'll see exactly what Kiko looks like tomorrow night and what we've got here with the Atlantic Basin, if we've got any changes. So have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night.